Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you. We're coming back to TG Snake Eye, a deck that I'm really excited to talk about because it's a deck that I really like. TG, I think, is a really cool archetype, and I think the kind of shenanigans that you can get up to with the support that came out last season is pretty neat as well. So much like last season, I decided to start with more of a TG Snake Eye build. I am still actually kind of interested in exploring more of a quote-unquote pure TG build, or perhaps even using TG with like a different archetype or just a different engine. But I think I'm gonna wait until I get into Master 5 before I start really like experimenting with TGs. But as far as playing TGs go, I really do think that a variant like this is about the best way that you could do it. So, for those who didn't watch the the profile last season, I almost said episode last season, when we covered TG Snake Eye, basically the idea here is that we're playing the bare minimum number of TG cards for the main deck, which you only actually need 5 to do the full TG combo line, right? That's 1 copy each of Tank Grub, Rocket Salamander, Screw Serpent, All Clear, and then Close, the counter trap. The extra deck is a little bit different, though, as you can see. Despite only taking 5 main deck slots, the extra deck does eat, or the TG engine, rather, does eat 9 extra deck slots for Mighty Striker, Hyper Librarian, Star Guardian, 2 Over Dragonar. The second Over Dragonar could be Power Guardian as well. It just needs to be a level 5 non-tuner TG Synchro monster. And then, of course, Blade Blaster, Crimson, Glaive Blaster, and everyone's favorite level 12 Synchro. Yes, we are still rocking the hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity. Now, if you don't want to play this card, which I understand if you don't want to completely, then instead I would suggest the Cosmic Blazar Dragon. Cosmic Blazar is another powerful level 12 Dragon Synchro that can negate a card or effect and destroy it, or a summon and destroy it, or negate an attack and end the battle phase. It can banish itself until the end phase to do one of these 3 effects. And again, I understand why people were not a fan of Calamity, but, you know, from a practical standpoint, I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, if I can negate one thing from my opponent, or I can negate everything they try to do on their turn, the latter seems to be, to me, pretty obviously the better choice. But, you know, it's fine if Calamity ends up getting banned. We can just use the UR craft points we got back in order to just make the Blazar and slot that right in. So, the idea of this combo line is that, or the idea of this deck, rather, is that by opening either the Diabell or Wanted as our 1-card combo to end on the TG line, that will end you on Glaive Blaster plus Calamity on your opponent's turn, plus also TG Close set as a counter trap, and 3 draws off of Hyper Librarian on top of that. So, not only do you have the Calamity setup, you have the counter trap to help stop anything your opponent might have to interrupt it, and furthermore, you also get to recoup on a bunch of advantage that you don't even lose because it's a 1-card, well, technically, you know, 1.5 card combo, the 0.5 being the card that Diabell sends from hand, but, you know, etc, etc. So, one thing I do have to say about this deck that does kind of make me want to play a more dedicated TG variant, because again, I think TG is really cool, but this deck is, I mean, if you look at the main, and also the remaining cards in the extra that aren't TG stuff, you can tell it is just also a Snake Eyes deck, right? And for the most part, we are operating, honestly, more games than not, just as a Snake Eye deck, and in that regard, this variant in particular kind of ends up in this really awkward situation where the best, in my opinion, probably the best way, the most competitive way to play TG kind of ends up being an inferior Snake Eye deck. Really the main thing that makes it inferior is losing out on so many extra X slots, right? Like, I did have some really great games, and of course we're going to see a few of those here shortly, but there were also games I played where I was like, I really wish I had Hita, or Access Code Talker, or just like more tools in general to help, you know, for more situations than just, you know, comboing out on turn 1, which is, you know, honestly, if I'm being fully honest, like, that's mostly what the TGs are good for. If it's not your first turn, and especially if it's turn 2, you're probably just not going to access your TG line, unless, like, the stars align and you're able to pivot into it. There are other ways to use the TG line within Snake Eye plays. I actually have a game where I start with Snake Eye stuff and then move a little bit into TG stuff. So it's not impossible, but this is why I always talk about how much I like decks like Sprite and Tri-Brigade, and even though I don't play it a lot, why I like Runick a lot as well. I really appreciate when archetypes can lift up a deck and not, like, steal its identity. You know, think about Sprite variants, for example. Like, Live Twin Sprite ends on Live Twin cards. Think about Tri-Brigade stuff, like Tri-Brigade Harpy ends on Harpy stuff, you know? Tri-Brigade Gladiator Beast does Gladiator Beast stuff. And then even Runick. Like, Naturia Runick cares very much about its Naturia cards. For Hire Runick, it cares very, very much and plays a lot of, and ends on a lot of the For Hire stuff, right? So those, I think, are great examples of archetypes that, again, lift up decks without stealing their identity. Now, here we have Snake Eye, which is lifting up TG, but unfortunately does end up kind of stealing its identity, because, again, at the end of the day, you know, you look at a list like this, and it's like, you know, it's great that we get to do the TG stuff, but, again, from a purely practical standpoint, we could just not be doing it and have, like, more than half of our, actually, almost 2/3 of our extra deck back. So yeah, it's like, I don't know, it might seem like, oh yeah, you just Calamity and you're like, Calamity on top of the best deck, like you know, that's a no-brainer. But you also gotta appreciate how, when you're mashing two decks together into a pile, how they sort of interact in that regard, right? And I will say that even in a more focused TG deck, I can still see myself running a single copy of Snake Eye Ash as well as like the Diabell Unwanted, because that's kind of the thing, right? Like, the reason, so you might be thinking, you know, okay, so what is like the real reason besides just, you know, Snake Eye being good to play Snake Eye with TGs? The other reason is that you do need the Snake Eye Ash as well as Diabell Unwanted for your TG line to actually be a one-card combo. Because otherwise, if you're running a more TG, like a more pure TG deck, you kind of have to open TG limiter removal to discard a card and then add 2 TG monsters, or just open a 2-card combo. But long story short, what Snake Eye does for the archetype, besides just, you know, adding a lot of power to the deck, is also turning your 1.5 in the form of limiter removal or 2-card combo lines into a 1-card combo line. That's a lot more consistent because, like, yeah, Diabell is also 1.5 card combo line, but you only get 3 copies of TG limiter removal, but you get 6 copies of Diabell between her and the Wanted as well. So for my remaining extra deck slots for the Snake Eye deck, I decided to pick out the most important Link monsters for doing a Snake Eye line, right? Link Kuriboh, IP, Princess, Amloil, and Appaloosa. And on top of that, I'm playing Borreload Savage Dragon. I was playing Baron de Fleur last time, but the Borreload definitely comes up quite a bit more. I think my main deck is mostly the same. I don't remember if I was on Veilers and Triple Tax last time, but one cool thing about this deck, and this is actually true of pure TG as well, because you have to run, or because you get to run so few cards to actually like make your plays, you actually have a lot of room to play Disruption and Board Breaker cards, which a lot of long form combo decks don't get that luxury, right? So TG is pretty uniquely well positioned in that regard, in general, not even like just in this meta, but, and this is even again beyond the Snake Eye build, even pure TG does still have a lot of room to play, again, just a lot of hand traps and board breakers. So always good. I mean, we see how having access to that helps long form combo deck in the form of like Super Heavy Samurai, right? So definitely cool to see that. Yeah, I think I've said pretty much everything I want to about the build here. The first game we're going to see is showing off the kind of like TG combo line, and then we'll see some other more like, I guess, back and forth games from there. So let's break the list down card by card and then watch those duels. We're on 2 Effect Veiler, 1 Jet Synchron, 1 TG Tank Grub, 1 TG Rocket Salamander, 3 Snake Eye Ash, 1 Snake Eye Oak, 2 Snake Eyes Poplar, 3 Maxi, 3 Ash Blossom, 1 TG Screw Serpent, 3 Diabell Star the Black Witch, 2 Snake Eyes Flamberge Dragon, 2 Triple Tactics Talent, 2 Original Sinful Spoils Snake Eye, 1 Divine Temple of the Snake Eye, 1 TG All Clear, 2 Called by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 3 3 Wanted, Seeker of Sinful Spoils. There we go. I got 3 Infinite Permanents, and then 1 TG Close. That's going to do it for our main deck. For the extra deck, we're on 1 TG Mighty Striker, 1 TG Hyper Librarian, 1 TG Star Guardian, 2 TG Over Dragonar, 1 Borreload Savage Dragon, 1 TG Blade Blaster, 1 Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity, 1 Crimson Dragon, 1 TG Glaive Blaster, 1 Link Karibo, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Promethean Princess Bestower of Flames, 1 Amphibious Swarmship Ambler Whale, and then finally 1 Appaloosa Bow of the Goddess. That'll do it for the list. Let's see those duels now. Okay, so like I said, this first game is going to be us showing off how to do the TG combo line with this deck. We're going to be playing against Infernoble, and we're going to be taking the first turn here. So, again, all you need to start with is Diabel or Wanted, and as long as you have, of course, another card to send, then you are good to go. I'm going to send my spare Ash Blossom here to summon out the Diabel. Diabel F is going to set... I'm actually going to set Wanted here because I already have Original Sin in my hand, but normally you would just set the Original Sin here. So, activating Original Sin, sending the Diabel. Opponent's got a Max C, but again, we have an Ash Blossom, so... Maybe they thought that because I sent Ash Blossom for Diabel, they'd get to resolve this, but nah. It's, of course we sent it because we have 2, so... Alright, negating their C, now we get to continue with our combo line, sending out the Snake Eye Ash. We're going to add the TG Rocket Salamander and use our normal summon on it. Now we get to use the Rocket Salamander F to tribute it and summon Tank Grub from the deck. Gonna synchro the Tank Grub and Snake Eye Ash for the TG Mighty Striker. Excuse me, Mighty Striker. Alright, Mighty Striker and Tank Grub are going to activate. Gonna chain block the Mighty Striker so it can't get Ash Blossomed. But if they had Ash Blossom, they'd probably use it at some other point anyway. Summoning the token and then adding the All Clear off Mighty Striker. All Clear is going to, once we activate it, we're going to activate this second effect, destroying one of our TG monsters to add a TG with a different name from deck to hand. By destroying our Mighty Striker, we not only add the Screw Serpent, but also activate the Mighty Striker effect to send a TG card from deck to the graveyard. That's going to be our Counter Trap Close. All Clear gives us an additional normal used on Screw Serpent. Now, Screw Serpent is going to bring back the Rocket Salamander, and then we're going to make Over Dragonar. You want to make sure that you're making this Over Dragonar with the Rocket Salamander and Screw Serpent. Do not use the token. The reason to not use the token is because we're going to summon back Rocket Salamander as well as 3 other TG monsters with the Over Dragonar. But if you use the TG token, you obviously can't bring back a token from the graveyard because tokens don't exist in the graveyard. So if you use the token and not the Rocket Salamander here, you miss out on a material and you can't do the combo line. Also, because we are summoning 4 monsters here, we need to be summoning this Over Dragonar to the EMZ. Those are 2 very important things to know about summoning Over Dragonar at this point in the combo line. Also, a very important thing to know, even if you're playing against this combo line, is that this is the Nibiru choke point here. Because the Over Dragonar, once it's activated, it's going to lock you into TG summons for the entire turn. So definitely keep that in mind. Again, whether you're playing with or against this combo line, really. Gonna sync for 5. We definitely need to make Hyper Librarian before doing any more synchro summoning. Now that we have an extra monster zone, now that we have another main monster zone open, we can actually use the Rocket Salamander's second effect to bring back the Screw Serpent once again from our graveyard. We're now gonna sync for 5 yet again. This time we're gonna make the Star Guardian. We get to not only draw off the Hyper Librarian, but Star Guardian will also add the Screw Serpent back from grave to hand. Screw Serpent is going to be how we make all of these level 5, so we need to keep recycling it like this, right? Drawing off the Hyper Librarian, and now we can start guarding the Specialist Screw Serpent, making our last level 5, which is going to be our second Over Dragonar, or again, if you wanted to play Power Guardian for one reason or another, you could play that instead. Now we get to sync for 10. Don't use Hyper Librarian, because we're still going to be able to get another draw off of it, as we make the TG Glaive Blaster. And indeed, here is our third draw from the Hyper Librarian. Now we can sync it with the Star Guardian in order to summon out the TG Blade Blaster. So now we're going to end up using our Glaive Blaster effect to banish the Blade Blaster. Glaive Blaster gets to bring it right back to the field, and because we banish a Synchro monster, TG Close can then set itself to the field. Alright, bringing back Blade Blaster, we can set the Imperm, and we'll just, other stuff we happen to draw, and then pass it over to our opponent. But our combo line is not done yet. It's very, 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 very important that you have to have your toggle set to on as you're going into the draw phase of the opponent's turn, because you need to activate Blade Blaster during the draw phase, and it has to be exactly the draw phase. You're going to see why here in a second. Draw phase, activate Blade Blaster, banish the Mighty Striker from the graveyard. Opponent's going to activate the Wanted here. That's fine, I don't care at all about that. Alright, now Blade Blaster banishes itself. Now the reason that we do it that way is to... Well, the reason that we banish in general is so that Glaive Blaster's last effect can bring back the Mighty Striker that we banished out of our graveyard. And the reason to do it during the draw phase is because that Blade Blaster will come back to the field during the standby phase. Okay, now as soon as you get priority passed over to you, you're going to want to activate the Mighty Striker effect during your opponent's main phase, syncing it with the Blade Blaster in order to summon out the Crimson Dragon. But don't activate Crimson Dragon, like if your opponent chains another card, or like just activates in general, don't chain Crimson Dragon. The reason is because Calamity, when used on the opponent's turn, actually has the potential to miss timing. So you only want to use Crimson Dragon when there's no active chain link, which again, that's why it's very, very important to have your toggle set to on when you are playing out this combo line, right? Because again, we don't want to activate Crimson Dragon in response to an opponent's card or effect. It's got to be just when you're past priority on an open, or I guess a non-chain link game state. Because this is a when, not an if. Because this wasn't intended to be summoned during the opponent's turn, so originally this wording didn't matter, but because this is a when and not an if it's used, if it's summoned rather during the middle of a chain link, you will not get to activate this effect. But yeah, there we go. Now we're activating Calamity, and boom, our opponent cannot activate cards or effects anymore. So you're probably wondering, how did the hell did they summon DML here then? Some people may not know this, but DML Star's first effect, fun fact, this is not an activated effect. This is some people call this an inherent summon. That's not technically the correct term, but it's treated the same as if you're summoning an extra deck monster, right? It does not start a chain link. It's like Cyber Dragon is the same way as well. Alright, opponent's going to... I decided to throw out the Maxi here just because I didn't know what they were doing. I was like, shit, do they actually have something they can do here? So, how cruel to Calamity Lock and Maxi somebody on the same turn. I can hear the collective cringing of TCG players everywhere. No. But, yeah, that is our big TG combo line that we can do to summon out the King Calamity. I want to make sure to show it off, just again, give us a refresher, or if you didn't see the last video, to show you how it's done. But also to note the very important things about the combo line to make it work. As with a lot of combo lines, there are little nuances that sometimes you don't always get from, like, reading the steps out, you know, typed out in a list there. So... there is our first game. I promise the next ones will have more back and forth. Let us see that next game here. Okay, our next opponent is going to be on Pure Snake Eye. It's a pretty standard list that they're on. Didn't see anything that jumped out at me as like too off the wall here, so... Alright, this time we did open the Wanted, but I didn't go for the TG combo line this time because we also opened Tank Grub. And Tank Grub does need to get pulled out of the deck by Rocket Salamander, and Rocket Salamander can only summon a TG from the deck. It's not hand or deck. So, maybe there was a way to make it work, if I did a little, like, mental gymnastics, but I was like, I don't feel like thinking, I'm just gonna do a Snake Eye line. So, you know. Starting with the Wanted during the draw phase to play around the Droll and Lockbird, of course, summoning out the Diabell Star. Diabell is going to set the original Sin from the deck, and this time I'm going to normal summon Snake Eye Ash. I'm not going to use original Sin, sack her for the Snake Eye Ash. There's like no reason to do that if I'm already holding it. I also really like normal summoning Snake Eye Ash before committing to flipping the original Sin, because... now it makes, like, if my opponent had Valor, Ash Blossom, or Imperm, which are infamous for stopping Snake Eye Ash and therefore the combo line a lot of the time, now they know. They're aware that I have an extender and a way to keep comboing, which is going to make them second guess about using their Disruption and when they should use it. If, for example, they're holding an Ash Blossom, now I imagine they, again, feel very, very conflicted as to when they actually want to activate that, so... Anyway, going to use Snake Eye Ash to add the Poplar F for the Divine Temple. Activating the Divine Temple F to set up a Flamberge from the graveyard. Don't want to set up the one from the deck because I'm only playing 2 copies. Of course, you don't really want to play 3 ever. So, if I pull out the one from the deck, then I'm not going to be able to pull one from the deck off of, like, Ash or Oak's effect, right? So, going to use the original Sin on the Link Karibo for the Jet Synchron from the deck. Now I get to Synchro for the Borlode Savage Dragon. Of course, it's going to equip the Link Kuriboh from the graveyard. Then I get to use Snake Eye Ash's effect to sack itself in the equipped Link Kuriboh. This will put Link Kuriboh back in the graveyard to, like, you know, be able to get it in rotation and to be able to summon it off its own effect. Plus, Warlord only needs the counter to actually negate a card. It doesn't actually have to be equipped, right? So, by summoning Oak from deck and then using its effect with the Poplar in the Spell Trap Zone, get to pull out the Flamberge, and then, yeah, just doing, like I said, pretty typical Snake Eye stuff. Until this point here, when I realized, wait a second, I can Synchro for Mighty Striker here, activate Mighty Striker, add all clear, and you know what I realized here in particular? If you had space to play Sprite Elf and Baron de Fleur in the extra deck, you could actually do that setup with Mighty Striker instead of Formula Synchron. Because like Formula Synchron, Mighty Striker has the effect to quick Synchro during your opponent's main phase, and it doesn't draw a card, but it does add a card from deck to hand, which is effectively the same as drawing if you just need a card to be able to send for the Jet Synchron, right? So, again, the extra deck, it just does not have enough slots for Elf and Baron. But fun fact, if you had room for them, you could do that full combo line with Mighty Striker instead of the formula there. So just food for thought. Gonna activate all clear and pop the Tank Grub in hand for the Rocket Salamander. I do get extra normal, so I can normal the Rocket Salamander, use the second effect to bring back Tank Grub, use the first effect to sack it, and then summon the Screw Serpent. Screw Serpent F can then bring back the Rocket Salamander. Here, before I get too carried away and before I forget, I want to just go into the Promethean Princess real quick, bring back the Flamberge Dragon, and then also go for the Ambler Whale. Although, let me think about this actually for a second. If I hadn't done that, I would have had a 2, a 4, a 1, and a 1. I could have summoned Star Guardian F to add back Screw Serpent, then Special Screw Serpent from hand, sync these two. Wait, because I never used the effect of some of the token, did I? I didn't. Oh, I could have added a Blade Blaster to my board. I'm just realizing this. Yeah, here's how I would have done it. So, when I had the Rocket Salamander on the field, right? Screw Serpent plus Rocket Salamander equals Star Guardian, like I mentioned. Oh, but Star Guardian's a tuner. Okay, I don't think I could have actually made Blade Blaster then. Never mind. I got a little bit ahead of myself there. Well, I could have summoned over Dragonar to do more TG stuff, but then I would have been locked into TGs for the whole turn, right? But if nothing else, we got to add a couple of extra bodies to our board to potentially use with the IP, and you'll notice at the end that Mighty Striker got to send the TG close from the deck to the graveyard. So now I don't have to worry about top decking any of my TG cards that are in the main deck, right? The rest of my main deck is all, as you can see here, it's all like staples or disruption and like Snake Eye stuff, so. Draw phase is going to use the Flamberge to pull out the IP. Opponent's going to use... This was, I thought, was kind of curious on my opponent's part. They used Crossout Designator and called Flamberge Dragon. So they're obviously playing it in their deck. So it's obviously, if not pure Snake Eye, a Snake Eye variant. But I feel like crossing out the Flamberge is so risky. Like, I don't know. It's not like the deck doesn't have lines at all without it. But it's like, I feel like it was a little short-sighted on my opponent's part. Because... really, what are you gonna, like, you know, my own disruption aside, what are you gonna do as a Snake Eye deck if you can't use Flamberge Dragon? That means that you can't push my stuff into the back row to get rid of it. More importantly, it means you don't get the extended bodies off of the graveyard effect, so... I don't know, but I do know that if my opponent's going to throw out Crossout now, I'm going to want to use Maxi. Not even because... Well, okay, it wasn't even because of the Crossout itself. While, yes, now I know they're much less likely to have an answer to Maxi, really what this told me is, oh, if they're calling Flamberge, they have it in their deck, which means there's no way they don't play Diabel, which means I do actually want to preemptively Maxi to try to get the draw off of that if possible, so... it's also not a big deal if they negate my Flamberge, because I can summon the IP off Divine Temple's effect. Here I decided to use the Borload on the Snake Eye Ash just to see if that was enough to like effectively end their turn. Divine Temple's coming down. I thought if I used Link Kuriboh in response, then they wouldn't get to summon, but they still do. But it's really not that big of a deal. Oh wait, no, they don't. They're just gonna summon later. That's right. Anyway. Oh, no, they do get to summon. They just get to pull from my Spell Trap Zone. That's right. That's right. They're gonna end up pulling my Flamberge here in a second. Well, I'm getting a little ahead of myself now. So, Anyway, like I said, when they summon, I get to pull out IP anyway, thanks to my own field spell. And then, yeah, now they get to use their field spell's effect for my Flamberge. But again, they've already negated Flamberge for the entire turn for both of us, so I'm really not that concerned about them taking mine here. I'm just going to make an Appaloosa as soon as I can, just to have the body, or the negates up, rather. Don't want to wait and then miss an opportunity to use it, right? I'm just going to use the Prediction Princess to pop my own Flamberge. I know I just said I wasn't scared of it because I can't use its effect, but at 3k attack, it could threaten to battle over the Appaloosa, potentially. I guess I do have Link Reaver for that as well. But either way, I'll just get it into my graveyard and then establish my Princess, and then, yeah. After Oak is used, I'm going to use Appaloosa to negate that. Now my opponent is pretty much out of stuff. As they move to battle phase to try to battle over Appaloosa, I get to just use the Link Rebo instead to negate it. Looks like they are making a Link Rebo of their own, and then that's going to be it. So, yeah, we have a pretty straight shot to victory here. I can't imagine there's really much of anything my opponent could possibly do to mess me up, especially with the hand I have right now, honestly. Like, I'm already holding the Snake Eye Ash. It's like I mostly activated Original Sin here just to bait out the Ash Boss from them to see if they had it. Yeah, we'll summon out the Poplar. I'll use Flamberge, or I'll use Princess, rather, to bring back Flamberge. And, oh yeah, this was funny. So, I tried to push back their Link Rebo, but I clicked the wrong Link Rebo on the list, and I pulled out mine from the graveyard instead. But it doesn't matter. Even when they use it against Poplar, I can still just swing in with Savage, Flamberge, and then Princess in order to find lethal there. Alright, that'll do it for that duel. We have a couple more to see. Let's check out the next one here. Yeah, our next opponent here is going to be Labyrinth, and don't worry if you were worried about this video being all going first games. You don't have to worry about me winning coin flips over here this season, apparently. I'm still on that, but no, we are going second here. Phenomenal going second hand here, too. Valor and Ash Blossom and Triple Attack. Opponent's going to start by setting one, and then... So I thought this was curious, and something that I noticed during the duel itself, right? My opponent set one, then used Dragolier and sent Called By. That, to me, tells me that my opponent's back row is probably another Called By, or it might be another tool to use against Ash Blossom. I think we will actually end up seeing what it is. I just don't remember what it is off the top of my head, but I thought it was really interesting that they would set and then use the furniture and send a Called By. Kind of feel like it was giving me a little bit of information there, but anyway. So here, okay, I want to talk about this for a second. I threw out the Wanted during the draw phase, just kind of instinctually to play around Droll, but this is actually a very unique situation where I should not have Wanted during the draw phase. Because I have a Triple Attack in my hand, and Lab is extremely rarely on Droll, even like, you know, during Super Heavy Samurai format, it was a little bit more rare for Lab to be on Droll, so I would have been fine activating it during the main phase, and if they had waited until the main phase to flip up Welcome Lab in response, then I could have used my Triple Attack to sound. It would be live here, right? So, naturally going to Ash Blossom the Welcome Lab here. Opponent's going to chain Maxi, not a Called By like I was expecting, so I'm just going to use my own Called By against their Maxi there. And here I really thought the last card was going to be Called By, but that's right, it was a big Welcome Lab. Which still does kind of make sense that they set and then sent Called By, because they weren't scared of Ash Blossom because they had another Welcome card anyway. So, although it didn't give me an exact read of what my opponent had, it's so important to pay attention to small stuff like that. You never know where you could get some information that could give you an insight as to what your opponent might have. Alright, so they get to use the Dragolier and the Labyrinth, the Lady Lab effect. Again, if I'd done this during the main phase, the Triple Attack would be live. But to be fair, a good Labyrinth player probably would have done this before the main phase anyway. Alright, so I'm going to pitch the Poplar for the DML. That's actually a little risky of me to do that. Although I think my thought process was that, you know, if they have another Disruption tool, I have Triple Attack, and I also can normal summon Valor and go for Borreload and battle over Lady, if nothing else at all, so... I can use my original send to send to that Poplar. Opponent does end up having an Ash Blossom in hand as their last card. Was curious as to what it was. But that's fine. I get to use, I'm going to use the wanted effect first to draw a card. It actually ends up being, yeah, the TG close, so literally the worst top deck I could probably think of here, but it's all good. We can still just take their lady. I'm going to summon Veiler, link off the Veiler for Link Revo, not syncing like I originally said, because I want to get rid of my opponent's Lady Lab and use it as a material, right? So, gonna link off the Diabella and Lady Lab for IP. We can't use Link Revo because IP is 2 non-link monsters, but I do get to link off the Link Revo and IP now to make the Flamberge, or I keep calling her Flamberge, the Promethean Princess. Here my opponent concedes, but my plan was to use Promethean Princess to bring back Poplar, Poplar to set up the Divine Temple to place probably Snake Eye Ash, not Flamberge because I wouldn't have had 2 level 1 fires in the yard, but by using Divine Temple and setting up the Snake Eye Ash, I can, if my opponent summons on their turn, special summon Snake Eye Ash and then kind of like start up a combo line during my opponent's turn that way, right? And yeah, then I could have battled with Poplar and a Princess. That would have been 4,500 damage, would have been the maximum output I could have done. And then yeah, just go into Ambler Whale and pass was my plan into my opponent, essentially in top deck mode. They did have the Dragolier in hand, but I mean, yeah, they were literally top decking otherwise. So yeah, like I said, not all going first games here. Just dumpstering on our opponent with a turn 1 combo line. We are doing some back and forth here as well. We do have one more game to show. It's going to be another going second game. So let's take a look at that. Alright, so our last opponent's going to be on Naturia Runick. It's an interesting build. I say interesting, that's kind of my way of saying I think it's probably not optimal. Because they're playing like a single droplet, a single triple attack, and what was the other thing that was like stood out to me that was really weird? Oh, Skill Drain. I don't really know why Skill Drain is in this deck, but okay. Thankfully, our opponent did not have that great of an opening hand. They're going to have to start with Mole Cricket set 2. It's something I always say about Naturia Runick. Like, there's a good amount of the time where they only get to access half their engine, and this is one of those decks where if they can only access one of their 2 engines, the deck is legit only half as powerful. So, I'm going to start with the Diabella, sending the Flamberge from my hand. Opening Screw Serpent, I could actually still do the TG line here if I wanted to. It's only, I think, really opening Tank Grub that kind of screws you out of it. But, yeah, it's like, if I'm going to have to play through Disruption, and especially through our Maxi, yeah, I'll just try to find I think, a quicker path to lethal there. So, Proto's kind of going all out here with both the Called By and the Mole Cricket here. Diabella getting to set the original Sin. Of course, they're going to get Camellia and a Sunflower. Camellia will send a Sacred Tree. Tree F is going to add a Blessing to their hand. I'm going to use my triple attack now and steal their Sunflower. But one thing I want to note about taking the Sunflower, one thing to be careful of is Blessing, the card they just added. This can summon an Etruria from the hand or graveyard. So if their other face-down card is another copy of the Etruria Blessing, there is a potential that they could summon back the Sunflower and then be able to have negates up again, right? So just something to be mindful of, I think, in general. Gonna summon Snake Eye Ash. Opponent gets to use the Camellia effect to bring back the Mole Cricket. Ash is gonna add Poplar. I actually kind of considered, like, not playing into the Maxi because my opponent clearly did not have a good hand, like, at all. But I also kind of figured, like, I think I just find lethal, so I'll just do that, right? Well, the other thing, too, is that, you know, because I knew it was an Etruria Runick, I'm like, yeah, they can Max C me, but I know this deck never plays Nibiru, so there's not really anything, and they don't have Fountain up, right? Oh, yeah, here's their other face-down card. End up being a second Called By, which we have enough extension that it doesn't matter at all. But yeah, no, I know the deck doesn't play with Nibiru, and without a Fountain up, it's like, there's nothing they can draw that's going to help them, right? They've already used Ash Blossom this turn, I think, if I recall correctly. No, they actually didn't. Wow. That was last turn, right? I think that was last game. Holy shit, that was the last game against Labyrinth I'm thinking of. But yeah, no, here they just concede because, again, like, aside from Ash Blossom, that's, like, the only thing they could possibly draw off of Maxi that could even do anything, and I think we've passed the point where that's a useful top deck here. So, that's something to very much keep in mind, right? Our last matchup, Labyrinth, that's another matchup where if they Maxi me, in general, if I have the ability to attack, I'm a little more inclined to play through a Max C anyway. But especially if it's a matchup like this one, or like Labyrinth, which I think Lab is sometimes on Nib, but if it's a deck that I know is not on Nibiru as often as other decks, then I'm very, very much more inclined. And again, Nature Runick it's not even a more often thing. This deck literally never plays Nibiru, so yeah, again, without a Fountain Up, what do I have to fear from a Max C from them? Literally nothing. So yeah, there we go. There are our games. Thank you very much for watching them. Let's take a look at our outro now. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. That means a lot to me. It's also a great way to support the channel, so thank you very much in that way as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other ways, like the very special patrons that I am thanking here, you can do so by checking out some of the links in the description. One of those goes to the Patreon, where you can join these fine folk and support the channel that way. I do post daily content over on Patreon, so you do get something for support there. And if you're interested, I also have a coaching tier option as well. Details again will be on Patreon in the link below. Also in the description linked below is my Twitch page where I stream a few times a week. You can go ahead and check that out, follow or subscribe over there if you ever want to catch me live. You'll also find my second YouTube channel if you feel like subscribing over there to watch some of the Twitch VODs as well as some additional non-Yu-Gi-Oh related content that I make over there. Again, any of those links you want to check out is all a great way of supporting. But again, even if you don't do that, just watching was also a fantastic way to support. And once again, I have to thank you so very much. But in any case, this is Hexlex. I'm going to be signing out, and I'm hoping you have a fantastic day.